All right, thank you for coming today, folks. That was stupid.
I like it. I like it.
Sounds like. Next slide, please.
Welcome.
Yeah. Hey, folks. Welcome to Two Fat Cooks. Cooking with Two Fat Cooks. Welcome to Cooking with Two Fat Cooks. Today we're going to make a very quick refrigerator pickle.
The cucumbers are in season, and we want to enjoy them as long as we can.
See. Plus, that's the only way they're worth eating. So
this is true.
There's that. So what we're going to do today again is just make a very quick refrigerator style brine. This is not going to be a canned item. Never really could get canned pickles to taste the way I wanted them to taste once they were done being canned. I find the refrigerator stuff, while you can't make it in store as long, to me just makes a better pickle. So there is that. What we have out right now is a couple of different measuring cups. Just going to use these obviously for mixing and whatnot. I've got a small 2-quart Cambro container. The original recipe for this was designed to put into mason jars. So the recipe that we're using today is pretty much for say about a 1 gallon mason, a great big mason jar, or a couple of the smaller wide mouths. Again, the containers are just, for us, better. They're going to wind up in the fridge. The Cambro style containers like this are stackable. It's plastic, easy to wash. If you drop it, you get crap everywhere, but you don't blow up a glass jar. So,
and they're wide and shallow. It's a lot easier to get the pickles out.
This is true also. So I've got some red pepper flakes that we're not actually going to use, but are part of the recipe. I like them. Christy doesn't. The batch we're going to make today, we're going to make a small batch, so we're going to leave that out so we can both eat them. I've got some mustard seed. This is a mix of brown and yellow mustard seed that I just use for general cooking, but again, mustard seed, whichever makes you the happiest. We got some whole coriander, black pepper flakes. That's not even the word. Black peppercorns. Peppercorns, not even black peppercorns.
Maybe they're flaky peppercorns.
I can't honestly speak. I've got some salt. Now this is canning salt. It is not table salt. Kosher salt will do in a pinch. You're going to want to, for whatever measurement you're using with kosher salt, you generally want to sort of round the measure a little bit because it's a larger crystal. But basically you use canning salt because it doesn't have any additives, and so it's not going to make the brine get cloudy. There is nothing wrong with it. You can use table salt if that's what you've got. If it gets cloudy, it's just cloudy. It's not going to affect the quality.
It's
not
the
going
iodine.
It's cloudy.
The iodine makes the pickles cloudy.
It's just something.
Science.
Yeah. But basically, like I said, so we have canning salt because we have all the salts known to man for no reason. But you can use a table salt, but for this, we're using canning salt because you're going to get a better looking brine out of it. This would be more important for something that you were going to pickle or truly can, so to speak. Put up like water bath or something like that, just again so it doesn't get cloudy, but use what you got. But again, this is canning salt. Kosher salt will work. Table salt will work. Just remember, if you do wind up having to use kosher salt, because it usually doesn't have any additives in it if you get the good stuff, you will need to round your scoops up a little bit to make up for that difference in volume.
Don't use Morton's. Morton's kosher salt has an additive. So
yeah, that's what I said, the good stuff.
Use Diamond.
We have white vinegar and apple cider vinegar. The apple cider vinegar that we use here at the house, unless we're doing big projects and stuff, is generally a natural style that has the, it's not filtered. So if you see stuff floating in it, it's supposed to be there. Not a lot of people go for it. This particular recipe, you can use both as a mixture. You can use one or you can use the other if you have a preference. I like to use the mixed because I think the white vinegar gives it a little bit more of that bite, and the apple cider vinegar gives it a little bit more flavor, but that's me. We've got a 1/4 cup of sugar. I've got right now for this, I've got just about 1.5 pounds of pickling cucumbers. This again, this recipe is just kind of one of those where you make and see what fits, depending on the size of the cucumber, how you're going to cut them, if you're going to cut them, that sort of thing. But that's pretty much everything we eat. I also got some chopped garlic off to the side here that we're going to use. Normally when I make this, I like to make it with whole garlic. We don't have whole garlic right now because of course we weren't prepared for this. So we're going to use the chopped garlic today.
And that's real life cooking right there. You go to make something and you find out you don't in fact have any garlic cloves in your garlic clove basket. So you go to the chopped cloves that you keep in the fridge for just such an emergency.
Exactly. I also have a coffee filter and I've got this little linen bag. Now we keep these little linen bags because we do a lot of stuff like this and they are actually easier to use and easier to clean. What we're going to do with this is I don't personally like to have the smaller spices and stuff floating around with my pickles. There's nothing to me that just takes you right out of the day than having a bite of pickle and getting a coriander seed stuck to it. They're good for what they are. I don't want to eat them. So we're going to put our stuff in this little bag, the loose spices and such. I will probably leave the vinegar floating, but this keeps the peppercorns and the mustard seeds and everything contained, so you're not going to be picking them up and eating them with it. If you don't have a muslin bag, if you're not a weirdo like I am, most folks have a coffee maker, or you can bum a coffee filter off a friend if you don't. Coffee filter and a little bit of kitchen string will make an excellent sort of quick and dirty one of these. You simply put the spices in it, fold it up, bundle it up, whatever makes your day easiest, tie it off with a little piece of string, put it in there just like I'm going to use this, and it's kind of a good, quick, and dirty thing. Again, this is something most folks have or can get pretty easy, and it works good for a lot of stuff like this. If you need to infuse something that you want to fish out later, put it in a coffee filter, tie it off. Just, again, it's going to be a little more delicate than the bag is, so make sure if you're stirring or whatever that you don't, lay onto it, but for the most part, it will do the trick in a hurry.
Let's make some pickles.
All right, so I'm going to get 4 cups of water. Now, we are on a well, so our water is a little mineral heavy. So what we're going to do is use some good water.
If you're on city water, you should be fine.
Would not matter. Well water, again, it's just like the salt. It is not going to affect the outcome as far as they're not going to be bad. It's just going to, can make it a little cloudy, so there's that. There we go. Now, I'm going to set this fella down here. I'm going to get some of this junk out of the way until we need it. Okay. So our first step is going to be putting the brine together. I'm going to use my big measuring cup for this. Now we're going to make a grand total of 2 2/3 cup of vinegar. So mixing them, we use 1 1/3 cup of the apple cider. Now, I wanted that on the floor.
It teaches it who's boss.
That's right. Now, since I'm measuring in this one and moving into this one, I'm going to go ahead and put my sugar in.
Get it dissolving.
Get it off the table before I dump it on the floor. It'll dissolve when it dissolves. It would be different if they, if I was measuring into this, I'd want to just have the liquids there. But again, for right now, this will work. If you're using a natural vinegar, you know this, but you're going to want to shake it up. And I'm going again for 1 1/3 cup. And this is the apple cider vinegar. Hate you. All right. Right. And then we're going to do 1 cup of the white vinegar.
I agree with you. I think white vinegar gives it a sharper tang.
White vinegar definitely more vinegary of the two, but it doesn't really have much flavor. It's just kind of that one note. All right.
Some vinegars, aren't we fancy? I'm telling Martha.
Yeah. All right, now. So we've got our 2 vinegars in there. I went ahead and put my sugar in. I'm now going to add my salt. This is 3/8 of a cup, which is weird, but that's what works.
How many tablespoons is that?
6, I think.
6 tablespoons. Excellent.
Canning salt will get a lot lumpier.
Because it doesn't have iodine.
Well, it's not iodine, it's an anti-caking agent. I don't know if the iodine actually
It's
affects
the
it.
iodine.
No, it's the
Is it?
anti-caking agent.
Oh, okay.
Because even if you get non-iodized salt, you're still not supposed to use it for canning because the caking agent is what
I
makes
think
it.
you were absolutely right. Look at
You
her.
think that's friggin' adorable that you think that.
Hey, I'm giving you one, you know? You get it right for the day.
So we're just going to stir this. Now the nice thing about this particular, since it is a refrigerator pickle and it's a very basic brine, it's just vinegar, salt, and sugar, and that's basically what, in some permutation, that's what almost any brine's going to be. This does not need to be cooked because one, we're letting the spices sit in it and meld as they sit in the fridge. And I don't need to worry about a temperature because I'm not canning it. A lot of the times with the brines that you're going to, like hot water bath can with, obviously you're going to want to have that hot so that you're not pouring it cold into a jar and then trying to heat it back up, because you're trying to do that as safe as possible. So this brine, again, we're just going to whisk this until basically you can feel, because obviously I can't see very much, but the salt and the sugar are going to dissolve into the mix. And that's going to get us where we want to be right there.
You are a vigorous whisker.
Oh yeah, this is not playing with it. All right, I'm gonna leave that up out the way. Now, I just got a little bowl there. I am going to put in my spices and build my spice bag.
Ooh.
Yeah, I like saying spice bag. Now this is a 1/4 teaspoon of whole peppercorns. Our peppercorn container is rather large, so I went ahead and measured them out beforehand. I have whole coriander. Coriander is going to be 1.5 teaspoons.
Is it weird that I like coriander when I don't like cilantro?
Yeah, they're completely different. That makes sense. Yeah, I find it odd. It's kind of like bay leaves. Not that they taste anything alike, but it's one of those things that you wouldn't expect to be in as much stuff as it is. Almost everything I've ever dealt with that's pickled always has coriander. We're going to do 1/4 teaspoon of mustard seed. Now again, this is yellow and brown seed. I like to just keep a mix because I think it's pretty. The yellow is going to be milder. The brown is going to give you a little bit more flavor. There is also commonly a black mustard seed, which is mostly heat. And again, a mix of that will work just as good too. Whatever makes your day.
Quite often when the cucumbers are really coming in good, Eric will make me a batch and him a batch, and he'll add the red pepper flakes to his because he likes little.
That's what I said. We're just not going to do it. Now with the pepper flakes, it's mostly to taste. For this size batch, I would start your first time with, like, say, maybe about 1/8 teaspoon. You also can use, there's a lot of peppers will come in good when the cucumbers are coming in. So slice you a jalapeno and put it up in there. If you have another one, the Fresnos are very popular. Drop one of those in. Generally, the red pepper flake, I think, is a lot of people's go-to because a lot of people have it in their pantry, and it's also just kind of heat without much in the way of flavor, which is what some people like for something like a pickle.
Because you've already got your pickle flavor.
Exactly. So fighting it with something else. But again, this is also just a basic brine, so you can do anything with this. The worst that happens is you pickle it, take it out of the fridge, try it, and decided you really didn't care for it that much. Start with a small batch. And again, this brine for this batch, probably going to be a little much. This can go into a jar, go into the fridge. I wouldn't keep it for, months at a time, but a couple weeks, it'll be just as good. Your pickles are going to be in it. So find you something else. Like I said, next time you go to the market or hit something fresh at the store, bring it home, chop it up the size you like, dump the brine on it, stick it in the fridge, let it rest for a couple weeks. Try it every few days. See what you like,
You can pickle anything.
Yep.
Cucumbers, carrots, green beans are wonderful pickled. That's the great part about eating seasonally is you get very creative with it.
Well, you know, and too, back in the day when a lot of people would do, you know, more what's now the lacto fermenting, but used to just be the way you kept food around. You know, a lot of people would crock. If you lived in an area that was cold enough, you'd have a crock just out on the porch. And you would pickle in that like all year just by adding whatever was coming in at the time on top of the crock and then eating as you went. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some of the big ones you could put a kid in. I mean, not that I've tried, but now I'm just pouring my spices that I have already off into here.
Oh, we're going to get letters about that.
That's right. Now, we do not have any fresh dill because, again, of course, we're doing this today, so we don't have fresh dill. This recipe is going to call for fresh dill. It's also, you can use dill heads. And again, all this will be in the description. It'll also call for a little bit of dill seed, no matter what type of dill you're using, because the seed gives it a slightly different flavor. Since we don't have any fresh, we're going to use a mixture of dried dill and dill seed. So what I need for this is those two.
I just realized we didn't have them over there.
You know, who needs pickles with dill? That's just crazy.
They'll be in the ingredients.
That's right, that's right. Now, the conversion that I have sort of kludged together over time for this particular recipe, and again, it'll all be written down, but we're going to use 4 teaspoons of dried dill weed. And this, again, is another good reason to use the coffee filter trick or one of the pickling bags or whatever, because again, this is going to get everywhere. Even using sprigs of dill, you'll get the little individual sort of feathery bits will come off in the brine, and you'll wind up again with those stuck to everything you're pickling. And not bad for you, but not something I want to eat.
Look at you doing it a teaspoon at a time.
I had the teaspoon in my hand.
This is true. All right. I cannot argue with your ergonomics.
We have seen my hand-eye coordination so far. So yeah,
there's ergonomics are sound.
No reason
I
for me.
withdraw my objection.
There you go, there you go. And our dill seed, which again is going to be put in, oddly enough, with that much dill, because it does give it a slightly different flavor.
They are definitely different.
Mm-hmm. Almost, it's weird kind of getting to where this wound up, this recipe. I looked at a lot of stuff. That's really the best way to do it. You know, look up 15 or 20 of them, start figuring out what everyone does the same way, and that's what you probably need to have, and then you can start weeding out, do I want to put this in or do I not want to put this in? Almost everybody that's not using fresh, and most people prefer the heads, I guess, but even a lot of the recipes that call for using the whole heads of dill, they still want the dill seed, the dried dill seed in there.
It definitely is a different note, for sure.
All right, so I'm going to pour most of this in the bag, some of it on the counter, I'm sure.
Off.
Yeah, well, you know. My college years weren't entirely wasted. I can pour stuff into bags.
We're not going to talk about green feathery things going into bags. It's not legal in this state yet.
And so what I'm going to do with this little muslin bag, we're just going to tie this off. And again, this is just going to keep everybody where they want to be.
You know it has a drawstring, right?
It doesn't have a drawstring, I don't think.
Is it a drawstring?
Holy cats. I've been tying knots in this whole time.
Who uses those bags more than the other person?
Well, I mean, you know. I don't want to say anything, but I'm an idiot, so, you know.
But he cooks, folks. He cooks, you know.
That's it. All right.
He can reach tall things that I can't reach.
That's all right. I think I just tied a knot in that anyway, so. All right.
That's beautiful.
Yep. Totally didn't work at all. Here, your eyes work at close distance with your fingers. Tie that off. I've managed to tie a knot in it. All right, so we are going to get our pickles or our cucumbers put together. And then we're just going to pour everything together and call it a day. Now, we tend to make these as whole pickles and then slice them however we want to slice them when we pull them out to eat them. You can slice them. The thing is with most commercial pickling...
Look, I put a bow on it.
Oh, you're so cute. They're going to add chemicals to it. They're going to keep that crisp so they can slice them very thin and still get that crunch. You can do that. There are recipes that will tell you how. We don't, because it's honestly more work. So we find that the larger pieces going into the brine will stay firmer and crisper. And then if we want it on a sandwich, we'll simply just cut it however we want to cut it when we take it out. You can do whatever.
They definitely last longer in the refrigerator whole,
Yeah.
I find.
Oh, they're just, this is the one trade-off of this. You're going to get really good flavor. You're going to use fresh stuff. It is never going to be a store-bought pickle because those are produced commercially with the heat and everything, and there's a lot of stuff they put into them, even the good ones, to keep that crispness. If you've ever dealt with this, like the alums and the stuff like that, you can use limes.
There's a cutting board behind you if you want it.
That's fine. I just wanted to show this first. So there are two ends. There's a bloom end, and then there's a flower or a stem end. No one on the face of the planet agrees on which is which. No one also agrees on which one, if either, you should cut off. My thought is you're trying to pickle it, so the idea is to get the brine inside. These are thin skin, but they still have a skin on them. So I cut a little bit off of both ends, so everybody's happy, and the brine has a better shot in. So we're just going to take a little bit off of the ends.
That's the stem end.
Yeah, that's what you say.
That's the blossom end.
Yeah, like I said.
That's the end the blossom was on.
I'm just telling you, nobody.
It's right there in the name.
Yeah, and you talk to people, and no one believes it.
You're just talking to the wrong people.
Yeah, you're telling me.
I don't mean right now.
Oh, sorry. Doing the usual, dropping the caul into the.
Oh, that's required. If you don't drop the end into the good dish at one point and then throw away what you're trying to cook, you're not doing it right.
And again, we're using this smaller little Cambro for this because this is the pickle, or this is the cucumbers that we had at the house for this. Obviously scale up, and you can do the same with the brine. Now, for a short amount, so if you got everything put together, poured this on, and you didn't get the brine covering everything 100%, but wasn't any reason to make another batch of it. As long as you are topping your brine with straight vinegar, that is fine, as long as it's no more than probably, like, say, a half a cup or so, quarter cup.
After that, you'll be diluting the flavor a little.
Yeah. And so, again, because these are refrigerated, it's not so much an issue of making sure 100% that the acidity is where it needs to be. These guys are going to be refrigerated their entire brief, crunchy existence. So that's not that big of an issue. But again, you can make more brine if you want to make more brine, and again, use it for whatever makes you happy. You can also top off a little bit. Now, the last thing we've got, and I don't put this in the bag, and I honestly would also not put the whole garlic in the bag, because I do like when the garlic sticks to stuff. I like eating the whole cloves. If you're using a whole clove, what we usually do is just you'd want 3 whole cloves, I take and lay them out, mash them with the flat of a knife, and then peel them off, and then just drop them in whole. You can chop them up even if you're using fresh. We have handy dandy pre-chopped, so that's what we're going to use. Now, because this is a huge container and I am lazy, we're going to use 1.5 teaspoons. I'm using a long-handled regular old kitchen teaspoon because, again, it's almost empty and I don't feel like digging around in it.
It's
so
garlic.
Close, exactly.
Oh no!
There's not really a thing as too much garlic in my opinion.
Too much garlic.
But again, for this, and something else as well, you're not a big fan of garlic, you can leave the garlic out. It really isn't needed. If you are a big fan of garlic,
I'm just gonna
put more
point this out. You said 1.5 teaspoons. You meant per clove, which is why he just put 3 in, because there's 3 cloves.
No, it's a half teaspoon of chop per clove.
You just put in 3 teaspoons.
Oh, so like I said, you can add more garlic. Yeah, that should have been 1.5 teaspoons. I like a lot of garlic, which was my plan all along.
Personally, I think the chopped stuff is not as strong as the fresh.
Very much.
And so I tend to put it in heavy to make up for that lack of strength.
And again, this is one of those things where the first time you make it more or less according to what passes for instruction, and then play with it. You want a little more of this flavor, a little less of that flavor.
Do what you want.
That's right.
Eat what you like. Just fresh and local as much as possible. I like the bubbles.
Mm-hmm. All right. I poured that everywhere. Did pretty good. All right, so we're just gonna poke this around.
I think there's a lid we'll poke those down.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna do it anyway, just
to show people.
yeah. So this is fine. This is not going to hurt anything. It is perfectly okay. You're going to want to come through and just kind of every couple of days, just lightly stir these guys around. Try to keep moving the ones that are on top to the bottom. If you're doing them in mason jars, there's a couple of places that sell these really ingenious glass pucks that will fit inside the neck of a mason jar and help do what I'm going to do here. But a clean plate, if you're using a larger container like this, you just take the plate, place it on top, and it will basically push everything more or less below the brine and hold it there. So again, you can leave this in for a little bit just to keep everything below. After the first couple of times you're taking it out to stir it, you probably could take that out because as they take in the brine, they'll start to sink a little bit. I'm just going to cover this off.
Painter's tape is a wonderful kitchen tool. You can use it to date and label things, and it won't leave residue.
Yeah, masking tape will work if you can find the good stuff, but for the most part, painter's tape is going to be your buddy. What is today's date?
The 30th.
Is it the
May
30th already? Holy
Tomorrow's
crap.
June. Can you
That's
believe
right.
it?
So 05/30. And this just lets us know what day it went in. This is going to stay in the fridge basically as long as you want it to. I would recommend let it sit like this every 24 hours or so. Just pull the plate off, again, stir them gently, put the plate back on, stick it back in for 3 days. So 3 days would be my minimum. At the end of 3 days, pull one out, cut a little piece off the end, taste it, see how it strikes you. Obviously, they're pickles. They're going to sit in it once you start eating them. But 3 days is, I think, kind of the minimum to start getting the good flavor to them.
I usually start eating them after 4 days. So yeah.
So like I said, just whatever works. You can't eat them right now. It's just pretty much just going to be pointless. But again, to me, after 3 days, they'll develop a little more flavor. But at 3 days, you're starting to get that pickle taste. And so that's kind of the trick.
And then you will, you can keep them in there if you ever develop slime or they get mushier than you care for. That's when they're done. That's when you no longer want to keep them. But other than that, as long as you're keeping them in the refrigerator and not introducing things into them, use a clean fork when you pull them out, they will stay beautifully in the refrigerator for as long as they last.
There are a lot of folks that will basically repickle. So as they're pulling stuff out, they'll put more stuff back in. Officially, that is not supposed to be done. So we'll say don't do it. It's just, again, the worry of introducing something back in or having an issue in here and then putting more stuff on top of it that may mask the flavor. Most things taste lousy when they start to go bad because that's how you know.
Vinegar is cheap.
Yeah, so just make more. And the nice thing too is, like I said, you can scale this up. We have a couple cups of brine left right now. Like I said, normally when I make these, I make them in a gallon top with about 2 pounds of pickling cucumbers, again, depending on the size. Honestly, I like the smaller ones now that I have been doing it a little bit because, like I said, you can try it with something in it and you don't have a huge keg of them that you find out you really despise when you're done with the project. You can make this in a small batch. You can keep putting fresh new ones in. That's another reason to keep them labeled so you know which ones are which. But it lets you experiment more and use them while they're still optimal. It's, the longer they sit, the more they're going to take in stuff and get weird. So again, making smaller batches and going through them is better than having one big batch that you throw half of away at the end of whatever time when they're getting where you don't like them. So also, most folks don't have a whole lot of room. So little stuff is better than big,
right?
And putting it together is quick. So
that's it. Pickles. Get yourself to the market. They're coming in right now, and get some cucumbers and whatever vegetables catch your eye, and make some pickles. Oh, you know what? We have Okay, so it's been about a week, and we're gonna try out the pickles that we made together on the 30th.
We have been stirring these
every couple days just to kind of keep everything in the brine. Nothing exciting. I'm going to go ahead, since we're should be done enough-ish, I'm going to pull my plate and take it out. No sense in keeping it back in there.
Oh, they look pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Don't they look like a pickle?
Mm-hmm. Surprisingly enough.
It's magic.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're going to take this little fella here.
We're going to cut one and show you what it's looking like inside now that it's had some time to pickleize.
Probably looking a lot like a cucumber on the inside, but I mean, who can
Push
tell?
that board this way a little bit, just in case. I'm not sure where I had the shot centered.
That's it.
That is gorgeous.
Now again, you don't get that deep penetration with the funky color you do in the bottled ones, but
It also stays crisper that way,
Yeah.
though. I really like that a lot. Here's a fresh cucumber for comparison. Cut that one in half. I'm going to eat it for lunch anyway.
flavor came through good.
Oh, nice. Now it's sandwich time. So you can see.
There's a little penetration of the color. Definitely the flavor comes through. It just doesn't. Don't be afraid if they don't look like those ones out of the jar. The ones out of the jar are like that for a reason.
Yeah, they're not going to turn that weird green. But you can definitely see the pickling action going on between the fresh and the pickled. And
these will sit, obviously, as pickles for a bit. Dang, that one fruit fly. In the fridge, again, these are staying in the fridge. They're going to be fine for a while. The nice thing, again, like we said, doing these whole is you can slice them as sandwich chips. You can do them as spears. You can do whichever. But that's it. That's the trick.
enjoy. All right, thank you very much.
No worries.
I'm going to go ahead and tack that on the end, and I'm going to post that this week.
Oh,